This morning, we are breaking down some of the misconceptions surrounding gender, and we're digging into what it means to identify as non-binary. And we're doing it with a familiar face to your morning viewers. Myles Sexton is here this morning. Myles has a brand new podcast, challenging societal norms and making room for meaningful exploration. Welcome back, Myles.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Always great. I enjoy our conversation so much. Let's start with the basics, the definition. Yes. What is non-binary?
So non-binary is really, it's actually quite a newer term that we've found within our language. And it's really about, I think, how someone identifies outside of male or female. So it's sort of like an in-between third gender that we're really doing, where we don't want to fit into either of those binaries. And so for someone like myself, I identify as non-binary.
You grew up in what you would describe as a heteronormative environment, he says with big eyes. How did that affect you personally?
It was tough, you know, because I think as a society, we're so fixed on sort of these binaries of gender. So as a young kid, it was I watched all of the movies where it's oh, I have to marry a princess when I get older. And it was just sort of these sort of ideas of okay, a man needs to act a certain way. I need to be masculine. I can't show my emotion, you know? It's I can't express my femininity. So I think it was really tough because I just internalized all of this shame and all of my divine femininity that it naturally wanted to come out. I wasn't able to express, or else I would be literally physically or verbally abused for. So it's, it was tough kind of navigating through that and reclaiming my power now as an adult, so.
And really the term is about inclusivity, because it's not saying you can't have a certain definition of gender. It just means including more.
100%. And I think people don't realize that I think gender is between your ears, not between your legs. You know,
it's a good way to remember it.
It really, because it's gender is a construct that we created as humans, you know? And it's I think when we have when we get into reproductive and the science of it, you and I, we share completely different levels of testosterone and estrogen. And there's so much more science to it that it's how can we just define on reproductive organs of how gender is defined? I think it's so much bigger of a conversation than that. So,
and let's talk about expanding that. There are a lot of cultures that go beyond just male and female. I think that might be new to some people. Can you dig into that?
Yeah, people don't realize, I think just in North America, many indigenous communities use the term, have a third gender. It's called two-spirit. So I think that that's one that we can sort of relate to, where it's again, it's they're not necessarily recognized as man or woman. There's someone who flows and embodies both of those. In India, you have the Hijra community, which is a recognized third gender that still exists to this day, which a lot of intersex and trans and non-binary people fit within, which is really cool. But unfortunately, due to colonialism, we've lost a lot of the history of those sort of third genders within societies. That's why we're oh, we're talking about non-binary now, but no, this has existed for centuries, and was just unfortunately erased.
I always say that words matter. That's really important to me. And it's true when it comes to things like pronouns and using inclusive language. There's people who maybe want to embrace it and are a little bit unsure how to do so. Can you demystify that for us?
Absolutely. I mean, we're all changing language now, right? We're relearning and we're growing. So I think it can be a little bit intimidating. So I always say that, if you're unsure of someone's pronouns, use their name. If you don't know their name, I love to use the example of going with gender, a neutral pronoun, they, them. Just because imagine you're walking in the park and you find a set of keys. Automatically you're oh, I wonder who they belong to. We're already using sort of this not an inclusive language around that when we don't know someone's gender identity or what the pronouns are. But I think we just need to think about that when we're in a situation, when we're addressing people. Because, if we're in a room with a large group of people, it's hard to be okay, it's everyone, a girl or a man. No, there's probably a spectrum of identities within that room, right?
I always enjoy, Myles, our conversations so much. And now you're having those conversations on an expanded platform. If you'd like to hear more from Myles, their new podcast is called Our Private Bits. I love that
Please
title.
Check it out.
That's so great. Really good to have you back.
Thank you so much.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you liked this, be sure to subscribe here, or you can check out more Your Morning videos right here.